His name was James McKenna. To the high school principal, he was just that old security guard. Nobody knew his past. Nobody had seen what he was capable of. Until the school's darkest day, when his true identity was revealed. The morning mist hung over Maple Ridge Secondary School in British Columbia like a gray blanket. Students shuffled through the main entrance, backpacks slung over shoulders, eyes glued to their phones. It was just another Tuesday in October. James McKenna stood by the metal detectors, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At 62, his salt-and-pepper beard was neatly trimmed, his Navy security uniform pressed to perfection. But his eyes held stories that nobody cared to ask about. "Morning, Mr. Jim," called out Emma Thompson, a grade 11 student with bright red hair. "Good morning, Miss Thompson," James replied with a gentle smile. "Don't forget your student ID today." Emma laughed and pulled out her card. "You never miss anything, do you?" If only she knew, James thought to himself. Principal Richard Ashworth walked past without acknowledgement, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. To him, James was just another expendable employee, a failed soldier who couldn't cut it in the real world. Someone to fill a position until they found someone better. The truth was, Principal Ashworth had never wanted to hire James McKenna. The school board had pressured him into it, something about giving veterans a second chance. Ashworth saw it as charity work, nothing more. "McKenna!" Ashworth called out without turning around. "Make sure you check the south entrance today. I don't want any unauthorized visitors." "Yes, sir," James responded, his voice steady and professional. As the principal disappeared around the corner, James returned to his post. He watched the students flow through the hallways like a river of youth and possibility. Each face was familiar to him. Sarah Collins, the quiet artist who sat alone at lunch. Marcus Johnson, the basketball star hiding family troubles behind his smile. Jennifer Walsh, the honor student carrying the weight of her parents' expectations. James knew them all. He made it his business to know. The morning progressed normally until around 10:30 a.m. James was conducting his routine patrol of the perimeter when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A black sedan with tinted windows sat idling in the visitor parking lot. The engine was running, but nobody got out. Years of training kicked in. James approached the vehicle carefully, noting the license plate and the suspicious behavior of staying in a running car. As he got closer, he saw movement inside. Multiple figures, all wearing dark clothing. This wasn't right. James immediately radioed the main office. "This is McKenna. We have a suspicious vehicle in the north parking lot. I recommend we initiate Code Yellow protocols." The response came from Principal Ashworth's secretary. "Mr. McKenna, the principal says not to overreact. It's probably just parents picking up a sick child." But James's instincts were screaming otherwise. He'd seen this before. The surveillance, the positioning, the timing. This had all the hallmarks of a planned attack. He made a decision that would save hundreds of lives. Instead of waiting for permission, James quietly activated the school's emergency lockdown system from his security panel. Alarms began blaring throughout the building. Classroom doors automatically locked. Teachers rushed to secure their students. Principal Ashworth's voice boomed over the intercom. "This is a false alarm. Please disregard the lockdown. Resume normal activities." But James knew better. He watched as 3 figures emerged from the sedan, all carrying large duffel bags. They moved with military precision toward the main entrance. These weren't parents. These were predators. James positioned himself at the main entrance as the first gunman approached. The man was young, maybe 25, with cold eyes and tactical gear visible beneath his jacket. He tried the door handle, locked. That's when James made his presence known. "Can I help you?" James asked through the reinforced glass door. The gunman looked up, surprised to see anyone. "Open the door, old man." "Now." "I'm afraid I can't do that," James replied calmly. "School policy." The gunman's expression turned violent. He stepped back and pulled out an assault rifle from his bag. But James was already moving. In one fluid motion, James dove to the side as bullets shattered the glass door. His body moved with a precision that belied his age, the muscle memory of decades of combat training taking over. He rolled behind the reception desk and immediately began coordinating the defense of his school. Principal Ashworth, who had been rushing toward the main office to override the lockdown, froze when he saw James in action. This wasn't the bumbling old security guard he thought he knew. This was someone else entirely. James spoke into his radio with the calm authority of a battlefield commander. "All units, we have active shooters attempting entry at the main entrance. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The second and third gunmen had positioned themselves at alternate entrances. But James had anticipated this. He'd spent months studying the school's layout, identifying vulnerabilities, and developing contingency plans. Plans that Principal Ashworth had dismissed as unnecessary paranoia from a washed-up soldier. Using the security camera system, James tracked all three attackers. He coordinated with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who were already en route thanks to his early activation of the emergency protocols. "Target 1 is at the main entrance," James reported with military precision. "Target 2 moving toward the gymnasium entrance. Target 3 attempting to breach the cafeteria loading dock." But the attackers had underestimated their opposition. James McKenna wasn't just any security guard. He was a former member of the Joint Task Force 2, Canada's most elite special operations unit. He'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan, earned the Star of Military Valor, and had been personally commended by the Chief of Defense Staff. He'd left the military not because he'd failed, but because he'd lost too many friends and needed to find peace. The high school job had been his way of protecting a different kind of future, the children who represented hope. Now, that experience was the only thing standing between hundreds of students and certain death. James moved through the school like a shadow, using service corridors and maintenance passages that he'd memorized during his first week on the job. He reached the gymnasium entrance just as the second gunman was attempting to break in. The attacker never saw him coming. With skills honed by years of close-quarters combat, James disarmed the gunman in seconds. The man found himself face down on the ground, his weapon kicked away, his arms twisted behind his back in a submission hold that he couldn't break. "Royal Canadian Mounted Police are 30 seconds out," James whispered into the man's ear. "You're done." The third gunman at the cafeteria was met with a similar fate. James appeared behind him like a ghost, neutralizing the threat before the man could even raise his weapon. By the time the RCMP tactical team arrived, all 3 attackers were subdued, disarmed, and secured. Not a single shot had been fired inside the school. Not a single student had been harmed. Principal Ashworth stood in the main hallway, watching in stunned silence as James coordinated with the police tactical commander like an old colleague. They spoke in military terminology that Ashworth didn't understand, but their mutual respect was obvious. "Perimeter is secure," James reported. "All hostiles neutralized. Students and staff are safe." The tactical commander, a man named Inspector Davidson, shook James's hand firmly. "Outstanding work, McKenna. Just like old times." You two know each other? Asked a bewildered Principal Ashworth. Inspector Davidson looked at Ashworth with barely concealed contempt. You mean you don't know who this man is? James tried to deflect the attention. It's not important, Inspector. The hell it isn't, Davidson continued. Principal Ashworth, meet Sergeant Major James McKenna, formerly of Joint Task Force 2. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Star of Military Valor recipient. The man saved your entire school today. Ashworth's face went white. He looked at James, really looked at him for the first time. The way he carried himself, the calm authority, the tactical awareness. How had he missed it? I didn't know, Ashworth stammered. That's the problem, Inspector Davidson replied coldly. You never bothered to find out. As the investigation unfolded over the following hours, the full scope of James's actions became clear. Security footage showed how he'd identified the threat early, activated protocols that Ashworth had tried to override, and single-handedly prevented what could have been Canada's worst school shooting. The 3 attackers, when questioned, revealed they'd been planning the attack for months. They'd studied the school's schedule, identified what they believed were security weaknesses, and chosen their timing specifically to maximize casualties. They hadn't counted on James McKenna. Local news crews arrived by evening. The story spread across the country. Veteran security guard prevents school massacre. James tried to avoid the cameras, but the students wouldn't let him hide. Emma Thompson, the red-haired student who'd greeted him that morning, spoke to reporters through tears. Mr. Jim saved all of us. He's not just a security guard, he's our hero. But perhaps the most telling moment came 3 days later, during an all-school assembly meant to help students process the trauma.